Hello team! I think it's about time we slowed things down and be creative with Banished, the latest indie city builder game on Steam and Good Old Games. Banished is developed by Shining Rock Software, though this is kind of a cute lie since this company is comprised of one dude that handled the entire game. Banished tasks you with the survival of a band of villagers as you create a new city from the ground up, based on supplies you've brought from your nomadic adventures and the areas you start in. The game is fairly different than most city builders since it uses a pseudo-dwarf fortress style of building and development. And while your citizens aren't special or unique, they are still the lifeblood of your township. Proper management of civilian jobs and town layouts are key to survival, and a poorly designed town can lead to a slow and tragic death. The gameplay for Banished is surprisingly in-depth given the genre. As mentioned before, logistics are essential in making a feasible township, let alone a successful one. Players need to be aware of their citizens' housing in comparison to their job location, and stacking jobs in areas can get hideously inefficient. Citizens are very needy. They'll need basic stuff like food and shelter, job necessities such as tools and clothing, and later on specialized needs such as faith and healthcare. The professions needed in order to develop your city further have a fair amount of depth and require management beyond just set it and forget it. Agricultural crops can run low on nutrition and need a crop swap to refresh soil. Overhunting a specific area can scare animal herds and impact hunting results, and population growth is a dainty dance between population numbers versus resource consumption. Despite Banished not having a combat system, there's still a fair bit of risk when it comes to your village. Your country bumpkins can be subjected to health complications and natural disasters, crops can be subjected to infestations and possibly ruin your agriculture completely, and workshops often bring about a worker's worst nightmare with ridiculous accidents that can occur. The risk becomes far more prominent later in the game, since there are certain jobs that outright say, "This is more dangerous than past jobs, people might die," which makes you take pause and wonder if it's worth risking a few lives to better the overall life of the village. While all this sounds like a headache to manage, everything about the gameplay comes together to bring about an air of realism to the experience, and players can find themselves getting entranced by the game and sinking several hours into it. These mechanics feel really great to me because they aren't a vague gauge of what your city needs, such as land value or employment rates. The game tells you exactly what you need to survive and what your city needs to do in order to stay afloat. You don't need to worry about jobs being unattended or resources being ignored because you as the player assign villagers directly to them. The game wants you to take a more active approach in managing a town rather than just trying to automate it. This becomes a bit more intense in the late game when more people and more jobs means there's a lot more things that could go wrong, prompting the addition of safeguards or backup plans. In a sense, it feels more like tending a garden rather than watching grass grow, which makes it feel more engaging as you play. The amount of detail put into the gameplay really helps out Banished in the long run. Another thing that I enjoy about Banished is how it facilitates gameplay knowledge to the player. Shining Rock really did a good job bestowing knowledge on the player in order to set them into the game's mentality. For one, the tutorial is really well done and does a good job detailing how gameplay mechanics work and giving you a basic framework of how to play the game. The game's HUD is very sensible. It lets you manage what you want to see and has a simple menu to find build orders and information with. Finally, the help menu in-game is easily available and provides a really well-detailed explanation of each game mechanic, which is fantastic since it provides necessary information in an easy-to-grasp and well-presented manner. The developer really knew how to explain his game succinctly to the player, and this simple thing is something most city builder games lack nowadays. Banished gets a huge plus from me for how well they handled this. Banished doesn't get off entirely scot-free, however. There are some design choices that irritate the crap out of me. For one, certain notifications get annoying as hell. Prepare to hear that bloop over a lack of firewood because it's gonna happen all the time. You can turn off that notification easily, but it's still gonna be something you see all the time given how often villagers burn wood for warmth. Other resources like tools and iron have this problem too later on, which causes a bloop fest should you ever be bad at managing your city. Another issue that's widely known is the sporadic AI quality. Pathfinding is oftentimes a huge problem with civilians trying to find an efficient path, and civilian AI for tasks can go nuts if players ever try to meddle with their work. The game is also unreasonably slow. Even with the game sped up to 10 times speed, the game progresses really slowly, and certain projects often mean waiting for resource gathering and building construction. Players can also find themselves in certain milestones where you're stuck in a rut waiting for either manpower or resources to build up, and no actual growth happens. I understand that this game operates under the mentality of Rome wasn't built in a day, but making things a bit faster could have helped out the experience. Finally, this game feels a bit mercilessly random with its disaster, where things like tornadoes or childbirth complications can occur on the first year and potentially ruin everything quickly. The problems aren't game-breaking in the least, but they certainly mar the experience. Banished has an okay aesthetic direction. There really isn't much to say about it. The visuals are simple but charming, evoking a very tranquil and solemn look to your village. It's very well done and nicely detailed, but somewhat run-of-the-mill in a sense. The music is very ambient and evokes a calm atmosphere to the game. The scores are very fitting, but given the genre, you'll find yourself using your own music rather quickly. While not overly outstanding, it's still a very well-presented game with no distinct visual glitches, which is fairly impressive given the size of the dev team. The game engine for Banished is pretty great. For a city builder, it's got a small hard drive footprint at 300 megabytes, but since it's a sim, it also uses a strenuous amount of processing power and memory. Given what it uses from your hard drive, the game's performance is fantastic and incredibly stable, but the frame rate drops if you try to multitask with, say, a video stream elsewhere. The graphics and audio options are serviceable, giving you a decent array of things to edit in terms of performance. Banished also lets you edit keybinds if you want to make some goofy control setup of your own. Gameplay options are especially nice. They could range from enabling mouse scrolling, displaying trivial information, or even running the game in the background so you can do important things like write a review while your city grows. It's a very well-coded game engine. The developer's years of programming experience really shows in this regard. It's been a long time since I legit enjoyed a city builder, and despite its problems, I could certainly recommend Banished if you're looking for an alternative sim experience. Shining Rock did a great job at developing a game system that sucks you in and keeps you entranced with your project, which is vital for a game like this to be any good. The attention to detail for its mechanics also makes this game a delight to mess around with. If you got 20 bucks lying around and remotely enjoyed the city builder genre, then I highly recommend Banished as a must-buy. It does so many things right gameplay-wise, and also provides a relaxing and zen-inducing experience to enjoy.